How's it going out there, everybody? Hope you're doing well wherever you are. Repeat movie viewer, here to share my thoughts and opinions on movies to all my family and friends and anyone else who's willing to join the club. So, welcome to the first of a series that I've been wanting to do on my channel for a very long time. Welcome to the first episode of Pete's House. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, so what's Pete's House and what is the purpose of said video? But that's cool, this being the inception. I will go into detail. The idea of this particular series is me doing a marathon series. Essentially, the idea is that I will be watching a full marathon, whether it be a complete film series or a series of movies, like so many different comedies or horror, maybe a certain directors whose certain movies I feel like watching, whatever the case may be. And the idea being that I will introduce the marathon, talk about each individual movie after I watch it. Essentially, I would introduce it, go to my room, watch the movie, come back, talk about it for a few minutes, rinse and repeat until the marathon's completely done, and then push it all together and just put it on my channel. Very simple. So, and this is not an original idea, if I'm being completely honest and fair here. I'm kind of ripping the idea off of Chris Stuckman a little bit. In the past, both him and his wife have actually done a series of videos where they talk about, or they watch several different horror movies, and they do exactly what I just discussed right now. So technically speaking, I'm kind of ripping that off. So, Mr. Stuckman, if you ever see this, you inspired me, and hopefully I'm not stepping on any toes here. This is not an original idea, although I probably would have thought about it anyway because I love marathons. I freaking love doing marathons. I love watching a series of movies in a row. I've been doing so many of them for years, but that's a whole different story. Now, the name of the series, Pete's House. Pete was a good friend of mine. I emphasize was. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He passed away around the time that COVID was happening. Originally, I met him at the movie theater. Anyone who's been a fan of my series or my channel up till now, it's been documented that I worked at the theater for the better part of about 11 years. And Mr. Pete actually started working at the theater. I forget exactly when he started, but he started working originally as an usher, but then eventually he worked his way up to projectionist like me, or as my brother likes to call it, booth bitch. I'm sure he's laughing his ass off on that one. That's what he used to call me, but whatever. Projection was a great job, and I loved that job. And we did that for a while, and eventually he would leave, and I was still there. But we stayed friends over the course of time, and it wasn't just us. It was between me and Pete, my buddy Dennis. Anyone who's been on my channel, you're familiar with him. He's done a few podcasts with me. And, of course, my brother, the Josh Zodiac. We all used to get together. At some point, Pete got a house, and he would invite us over to his house, and we would do marathons. And we did this for so many different years. I can't tell you how long we did it, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Just we're all movie fans. That was the whole appeal of the whole thing. We would all get together and just sit down, pick different movies, whatever the case was, and just sit there and hang out all day. No big deal, as friends like to do. And I'm not going to lie, I miss that. I miss it a lot. I'll be honest, I can't do marathons anymore without thinking of him. It's freaking impossible. So when I originally thought of this particular series, I had him in mind. I wanted to name it after him. From the get-go, as soon as I thought of the idea, I knew I wanted to name it after him or have him be inspired and make it a point to make it known that he was inspired in some way. But the problem was, well, not really a problem, but I wanted to at least confirm with the family first, because this is not something I want to step on anyone's toes. I don't want to, rub anyone the wrong way. So I did get in touch with his sister. She was real cool about it. She says the family is okay with it. Got confirmation on it. So I appreciate that. I really do want to keep this man's legacy and his memory alive, because damn it, he was one of the few good friends I had in my life. In life, you have a lot of people who are cool friends, acquaintances, but you have very few good friends. And then there's not too many people I can consider that. Him and Dennis are probably some of the few that I have in my life. There's like one or two others. There's not that many, but everything's cool. I got confirmation, like I said. So from this point going on, Pete's House will be a dedicated series to my buddy Pete. So Pete, buddy, this is for you. This series is specifically for you. You're a loss, but you're definitely not forgotten. So, all right. So I think that's everything I want to say about the initial idea of the series. I think that's everything we needed to cover. So, you already clicked on the video. You already know what you're in for, what I'm in for. Now, just to clarify, and I'm sorry I keep fucking with my hair. Usually I have it slicked back. I decided not to do that, and my hair is just like all over the place. So, I'll cut it eventually, probably before Fantastic Fest. But, okay, so the new Resident Evil trailer dropped last week. And I've been watching a lot of different Resident Evil stuff over the past week. The Netflix series, Welcome to Raccoon City. My review is actually up on the channel if you want to check that out. I'd appreciate it. So I thought, what the hell? I want to go ahead and get this series going once and for all. So we are going to be doing the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies. I have most of them. I don't have all of them. This is a random 4-pack that I found at some point. It's a big black box. I bought this one at half price at some point. I do not have the final chapter, but it is available to rent on streaming. So I do have them all. And depending on how I feel at the end of all this and how long it takes to go through all this, I might throw in Welcome to Raccoon City as well, just for the hell of it. I might throw it in at the end, just so I can rewatch it, because I do want to do a second viewing review of that particular movie, because there's plenty I want to talk about. And there's plenty to talk about with this series as well. So without further ado, here is the first marathon video, or the first video of Pete's house, I should say. And of course, we got to start at the very beginning, Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's been a couple of years, and I've been wanting to do this marathon for a while, and it's like, well, after the trailer came out last week, why the hell not? Why not? So I'm gonna go check out the flick. I'll come back and I'll talk briefly about it, and we will just keep it going. So let's get into it. Wouldn't want to shoot you. Might need the bullets. Back off. All right, so one movie down, plenty more to go after that. A couple quick things I want to add to this. I should have mentioned it before, but I'll mention it now. Going forward with these movies, I will be talking some spoilers when it comes to these movies, just to get my point across. So if you don't want to hear me get any specific about anything, then feel free to jump ahead or turn off the video until you get a chance to watch some of these movies. I don't want to be the person ruining it for you, so I will implement it right now. Spoiler alert, going forward. And that'll be pretty much for every video, but I think every video going forward, I'll just emphasize it at the beginning of the video, just to cover my own ass. Don't want to hear comments, hey, you ruined the whole franchise for me. Did I, though? Did I? The other thing is, it's funny how over the years, about 10 years ago, I was real big about letting other people's opinions influence my opinion about a movie. I would typically watch something and I would think what I think, hear somebody else's opinion, and I would kind of shift and start catering more to what they say. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember really why I was doing that back then. I think I've done that a pretty good portion of my life. But a few years ago, I came to a conclusion that why am I doing that? Why am I going to do that? It's my opinion, and I should stick to my guns. If this person, that person, these people don't agree with what I think, well, it is what it is. What else can I do? You can't convince everybody. You can't please everybody, and I got to stick to my own guns. How can I expect anyone to take me seriously if I don't make my opinion and stick to it? Otherwise, I come off like Wembley from Fraggle Rock, where I just can't make up my mind at all. So I've definitely changed over the years, and I emphasize that because there was a time, again, about 10 years ago, where I was kind of hating on this movie because other people were doing it at the time. But after not watching it for a couple of years, I gotta say, this movie is still fun for me. I still enjoy it. There's a lot of things I do enjoy. There's a few things I don't. There's like some nitpicky negatives along the way. Like some of the makeup on the zombies doesn't work for me. Some of it's kind of badly aged. CG, I don't care for the way the liquor looks half the time. When he's a puppet, he looks all right. But when it comes to the CG version of him, it looks all right. I don't care for the way he kind of, metamorphosizes after he eats and whatnot. Didn't care for that. And there's a few other things along the way that just rub me the wrong way. But otherwise, I feel like it's got some pretty good action. The soundtrack is actually pretty good between the original soundtrack and the stuff that Marilyn Manson did. I do get behind at least half of the actors in this film. At least half of the soldiers that we end up meeting. We don't really get to know any of them, and I guess it kind of makes sense because they all get killed in the fucking laser room. So we only get to know about half of the characters in the film. It is what it is. But the bottom line, I actually still enjoy this movie quite immensely. And here's my thing, and I used to say that the biggest problem with this movie back in the day, I used to say that if you were like a hardcore Resident Evil fan and like the games and never play the movies, never watched the movies. If you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan, you might hate the movies because they're not exactly like the games. I mean, Anderson originally said that this was supposed to be a story, a secondary story, almost like a prequel kind of story that kind of coincides with the original games. Now, I would initially go with that, but considering how, as the series goes on, it kind of goes on its own little tangent and completely bypasses everything that goes on in the games. I now look at this series as like an alternate universe, alternate take, I guess you could say, on the series in general, considering that it doesn't really coincide with the games very well. That's just my opinion. But for the first one, I still enjoy it. A lot of fun. Not a whole lot of major complaints. Nothing that really takes me out of the film. Nothing that does like a disservice to me personally watching it. So, good start as far as I'm concerned. Next up, Resident Evil Apocalypse. Arguably my favorite of the franchise. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this has always been my favorite. I feel like this one actually did a good job of combining parts 2 and 3. It had Nemesis in the movie, and it kind of basically continued exactly where the last film left off. It's like the way the last film left off with Alice just kind of standing in the middle of the street with a shotgun, with the big camera pan and whatnot. We do actually pick up on that, but then we also go into other details before we get to that point. It's like, okay, this is where we are at the end of this film. Let's backtrack a little bit, tell the story of these characters and how they get to this point, and then we can have them all meet up with Alice, and then boom, there's the movie moving forward. So, but I feel like this is most definitely the best. Let's see if it still holds up after all these years. I don't think there's anything else I can say. I'll go ahead and cut it here, jump into the film, and we'll see what I think of it after all this time. We're assets, Nikolai. Expendable assets. And we've just been expended. Okay, so 2 movies down, and it's funny. I said before that this was always like my favorite of the franchise, but now maybe it's a good thing that I'm going through the marathon of all these films, because now, after rewatching this after a few years of not watching it, I'm starting to rethink it because, I don't know, there's a lot of different things about this movie that just don't hit for me. But there's plenty of things that do, so I feel like this one is more of a mixed bag. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are just kind of random. I mean, again, this is where the confusion of the Anderson franchise, this is where it starts to begin, mostly surrounded about the ending. To this day, I don't fully understand how the ending goes. I'm still unclear. The first time watching it, I was confused. 10 years ago, I was confused, and here we are now. I'm still confused. I don't fully get it. Like, okay, so does Alice die and sacrifice herself on the helicopter, and then the version we see 3 weeks later is supposed to be the original version of Alice, and the one that was there in Raccoon City was a clone, and then the original Alice gets let go, and all of a sudden she's got these like telekinetic or telekinesis type powers, or however the proper word is. And then all of a sudden her friends show up and they all have security clearance for Umbrella, and they take her away. It's confusing. It's a very confusing ending. And again, this is where the confusion for the franchise really starts. And here's the thing. In the next film, Extinction, none of this is really explained, at least not to my knowledge. Again, good thing I'm doing this because I'm still a little bit wishy-washy on some of the details. And it makes me wonder, that scenario I just gave, is that the original idea? Or does Alice end up healing herself over the course of the 3 weeks until we see her later on down the road in Umbrella headquarters? I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, this one just doesn't hit as well for me as it used to. But you know what? We'll keep it going. I won't bother going into too many highlights for every single film because some of the things I like about the first movie and things I didn't like kind of continue on, like some different uses of camera, like weird camera usage. There was a little bit of it that was kind of off in the first one, and some of it continues here, similar to some of the camera usage in Lord of the Rings. It's hard for me to explain. It looks very like, I don't know, grainy, distorted. I don't know. It looks weird. It looks very weird. Uh, I do like how we got Jill Valentine in this game, or excuse me, in this movie, and I like how she's a badass. One thing that always got me about the Jill Valentine character in this movie is that you're pretty much expected to have played the games to know anything about her, to understand how she already knows everything. Because again, playing into the idea that this is supposed to be her after the initial incident at the mansion. And in this one, it's like, okay, she's already got the dress from the from part 3, the Nemesis game, and it's like, if you never played the games, you wouldn't have a damn clue who she is, what she's gone through, or why she knows as much as she does. So they don't really go into full detail about that. So, but she's still a badass. And this is where I feel like my ability to really identify with the Alice character, it starts to waver thin, because in the original film, she was just a regular person, a human being, didn't have any extraordinary powers. But in this one, she's got the T virus inside of her, and it's really bonded with her on a molecular level, and it makes her like a superhuman badass and whatnot. So now, all of a sudden, every other regular human character kind of takes a back seat to her being the ultimate action badass of the entire, not just movie, but franchise moving on. She is the ultimate badass in everything that goes on going forward. And it kind of dehumanizes her in my mind. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe I'll think differently down the road, but that's kind of how I feel. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe this one will still be my favorite after I'm done with all the films, but we'll see. But continuing on with the marathon, and I didn't bother to pull this out prior, we go to the next movie, which is also for me always been a bit of a mixed bag, because Resident Evil Extinction, not a bad film in my opinion, but this is where the series kind of goes on its own tangent. Because up until now, you feel like Paul Anderson was kind of just going along with the games in some fashion, like trying to coincide the Alice storyline with the original games. But once you get to this movie, it's like all that shit goes right out the fucking window. I haven't played all the games, but I don't think, to my knowledge, that there is no like apocalyptic type future that has happened, almost like a Mad Max type shit going on in the video games. And considering that we just got Requiem recently and the things that go on in that game, haven't played it, but I'm aware of some of it. This is definitely kind of, they're doing their own thing at this point. In my mind, in my opinion, what they're doing is they're doing the same thing that Stanley Kubrick did, taking the title, the characters, the creatures, whatever, the locations, so to speak, or at least some of them, and just kind of doing their own freaking thing. That's exactly what Kubrick did with the original Shining. He just kind of took the bare bones minimum from the book and just did whatever the hell he wanted with it. And that is exactly what Paul W.S. Anderson is doing in these films from this point going forward, in my opinion. But again, after I watch all the films, we'll see if my position on that changes. We'll see. For so long, I thought you were the future. I was wrong. I am the future. No, you're just another asshole. And we're both gonna die down here. Okay, so officially 3 movies in. Decided to comb my hair a little bit. I was looking pretty raggedy after 3 films. Fatigue is starting to set in quite a bit right now. I'm not really surprised. This series does take a toll. The movies, I should say, that take a toll on me after a while. So, you know, it's always fascinated me how a movie that is only an hour and a half runtime, roughly, with credits, can still feel like it's well over 2 hours long. I don't know. This movie, as short as it was, it felt longer. but that could also be just a lot of different things that were not really sitting well with me. I mean, this movie for me, my initial impression after watching it again, it's a mixed bag. I can't pretend like there's nothing I don't like. There's anything I can't. Okay, scratch that. I can't pretend there isn't anything I don't like about it. There is plenty I do enjoy. My problem here is that the things that I'm not a big fan of are actually pretty big. Pretty big, massive, uh, just continuity issues or things that just don't make any sense. The filmmakers kind of just making up their own rules as they go based on what we already know from the previous films. Again, like I said before, this is when they kind of go on their own little tangent and do whatever the hell they want. Plus, I always thought that Paul W.S. Anderson directed all the films. No, he did not. He just wrote them, essentially. Uh, so far, there's been a different director for the past two films. I must have somehow forgotten about that. So we're definitely learning a few things as we go. This movie is like an amalgamation, in my opinion, of different other major either IPs or just random films that I've enjoyed over the years, which is funny how when these films originally came out, so many of the franchises that they're paying homage to or ripping off, depending on your perception, I didn't know anything. I'd never seen them. Like I'd never seen Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. The scene with all the crows, I feel like that kind of gives that movie a run for its money. Uh, and I appreciate them finally putting the crows in the film because they were pretty prominent in all the games that I played, or at least most of them anyway. The whole idea about the fenced-in perimeter with the elevator leading down to the underground facility, Day of the Dead, trying to get the zombies to kind of domesticate them. Day of the Dead, Bub, anybody? Bub. Might as well call the guy Frankenstein as far as I'm concerned. But I didn't know these franchises back then. And there's definitely a high influence, in my opinion, of Mad Max throughout the entire film. The fact that it apparently the virus has spread so badly that, the whole entire world is basically a vast barren of like desert and shit. So there's a lot of really good footage, shots of the cameras just looking at different desert areas. And I think it's pretty effective. It does give a very good impression. It goes with the whole idea of the world has completely come to an end, essentially. Humans are still alive. There's still a lot of umbrella people underground. But it does fit the aesthetic, and I appreciate that. But like I said, all the things that I don't care for are pretty big. And eventually, when I do a review of this movie, I'll go into full detail. But one of the biggest things I always had a problem with, number one, the creation of the tyrant. I always had an issue with that because in the game, it was created a lot differently. This one, it feels very last minute, half-assed, and very forced. He looks good, though. I mean, whenever they're not using the CG for the little tentacles and whatnot, Tyrant doesn't look that bad. I feel like he looks like a pretty decent practical monster. He looks pretty fairly identical to the original game, so I don't have any complaints on that. But the creation in the movie, I don't care for. Especially when you take into consideration how the process of the creation of the Tyrant worked in the game. Also taking into consideration that Mr. X from Part 2 and Nemesis from Part 3 were all just different variations of the Tyrant. And here it's just, he gets infected by a zombie who bites him, who they were experimenting on with Alice's blood. Apparently he puts 6, 7, 8 vials of the freaking anti virus into his body, and then it mutates him. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. But the biggest one for me, I think the biggest one is, again, with the whole spoiler alert thing in effect, LJ gets bit by a freaking zombie. And it takes him 2 days to turn. Whereas in the original film, Rain, now you can argue she got bit multiple times throughout the 3-hour period that they were underground in the hive. But in this movie, it takes him 2 straight days before he finally turns into a zombie. And again, you don't really see the process of him turning until literally minutes before he does it. It's not a slow progression. And they could have really played with this idea. They could have really played on the idea he doesn't feel well, he's coughing up blood, he's starting to look different. Everyone's like, hey, are you okay? What the hell? But only at the last minute does it get addressed and that he turns. And it's like, those are probably two of the biggest things about the movie that I'm just like, I don't think so. But moving on with the marathon, we're going to continue on with Resident Evil Afterlife. I remember watching this in theaters. I want to say this one came out because up until now, the first three films came out while I was working at the theater, and I'm almost sure this one was after I left, but I'll double check the date and I'll confirm that later. But this is where they completely embrace the action aspect of the franchise and throw the horror element completely out the window. Even Extinction didn't really have a whole lot of horror elements outside of the crows and the zombies. That's it. It's like they're not even trying to make them horror movies anymore. They've completely embraced the action aesthetic at this point. What are you going to do? But, all right, we'll be back. Well, isn't this one big family reunion? Chris and Claire Redfield, you've really become quite an inconvenience for me. I told you I'd be bringing a few friends. You should have brought more. And I'm not throwing my glasses. We're not doing that. Oh my God. I forgot how much I don't like this movie. Oh, it's been so long. I completely forgot how much of a toll this movie takes on me. Oh my God. Pete, give me strength, brother. Give me strength to continue with this. You know, there was a time in the past when I would tell him, you know what, why don't we skip this particular film of a franchise because it's not enjoyable whatsoever? To which he would always reply, if it's a marathon, you got to do it all. Moving along. All right, so Resident Evil Afterlife, man, this one hurt so bad to get through. This was the first Resident Evil movie to take advantage of the newly crowned 3D technology at the time. I mean, of course, there was the old school 3D technology with the red and blue glasses that everybody probably remembers. I know House of Wax made that shit famous back in the 50s, but somewhere along the line, I want to say the late 2000s, early 2010s, somewhere in that ballpark, they redesigned it. The 3D gimmick actually looks better now than it ever did before. But for me, with somebody who wears glasses, it doesn't really work for me. And in this movie, it's quite prominent. Between the opening and then the fight with Wesker, the fight with the guy with the ginormous hammer. I know he's from Resident Evil 5. I haven't played Resident Evil 5 yet. I know there's plenty of the games I haven't played yet. I'm sure that a lot of people are screaming at their screens right now, like, what the fuck? But don't worry, I own up the majority of the Resident Evil mainstream games, just haven't gotten around to playing them all. I'll get to it. But you know what the biggest problem with this movie was I was struggling to find things to compliment, good things to address while watching said film. It's going to make doing a review of this movie unbelievably difficult because I don't like shitting all over a movie. I really don't. I mean, this movie had quite a budget. I can tell where all the budget went. It went to all the CG effects and all the friggin' 3D effects as well. But I mean, I try to look at as much positive as humanly possible, but this movie had barely anything to be positive about. What I do is I sit down with index cards, and on the front I write down the positives, on the back I do negatives, and if I need another one, I continue on. Most of that index card is full of negatives or just nitpicks, things I just didn't care for. There was like 2 or 3 things that I gave as a positive, and again, they were minuscule, tiny things. This one hurts to watch, and considering that it's an hour and a half long movie, and a lot of so many of the action sequences were done in slow motion, it makes me wonder if you were to speed up all of those sequences and watch them in their regular speed. That tells me that this movie being, I think it's an hour and 36 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark, that tells me the runtime on this movie would probably be a little bit closer to an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes long. It seems to me like Paul W.S. Anderson really didn't have a whole lot to work with this film. It almost feels like they just threw money at him and said, hey, the last 3 movies have tripled, and this is actually legit, the first 3 Resident Evils all tripled their budget in the grand scheme of things, worldwide box office. And it feels like they just kind of threw money at him and said, hey, give us another one of those. Give us more money. Come on, we need more money. $60 million budget on this film, over $300 million worldwide gross. holy shit. If anybody's ever wondered why did they keep making these films, that's why. Because they were banking. Whether people in America or wherever were shitting all over the movie on the quality of the story or anything else, they were banking some major bucks. And that's all there is to it. That's all studios really seem to care about. It's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. What can we do? But yeah, again, it's going to make it interesting to do a review on this because there's so many things I couldn't get into. There was no real story. Couldn't get into most of the new characters. There wasn't really any new interesting outside of Luther, but even his character, some of the things that happened more towards the end, I have to call major bullshit on. Some characters are introduced. They don't really have anything going on with them, and then they just kind of get killed off, and it's just like, who cares? You had so little impact. After a character dies 10, 15 minutes later, I forgot they were even in the movie. That's pretty bad. Not very good storytelling, in my opinion. So, and I'll be honest with you, I've only seen this movie a couple of times, but the one I'm going to do next, that being Resident Evil Retribution, I'll be honest with you folks, I've seen this one maybe twice. Maybe 3 times in my life. I know it's got something to do with an underground facility. I know we get Leon Kennedy, and I think Barry's in this movie, and I like the actor that plays him, even though they screwed up the character anyway, but I at least like the actor. I know Michelle Rodriguez comes back in this film, and I don't think, as I recall, a lot of the things that are done, explained, it kind of retcons a lot of stuff from the previous films, and a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. If I was to give one positive on the previous film, Afterlife, it's that when when Alice gets her powers taken away from her by Wesker in the opening of the film, at least she takes it like a boss. She takes it and thanks him like, thank you for making me human again. It's like, you know what? Okay, that's at least something. And at least she's still a cool character throughout the film. But even with her, I don't feel like they gave her a whole lot to work with. So that's just my opinion. But I'm going to take a 5-minute break before I jump into this because, like I said, that last one really hurt me. But, one thing, I will say this. One thing that actually makes watching a movie marathon when you start getting into the bad films, what makes it just a little bit better? Some pizza. What can I say? I'm a fat kid. What can I say? What? You can't have no my pizza. It's my pizza. Someone's got to stay here, Leon. Besides, I'm kind of enjoying myself. Barry went out like a boss. Let's be fair here. Boy, life likes to throw you hurdles. Last night was fun. I was ready, gearing up to do this, to finish out the marathon with the last final chapter, be done with it all. And of course, we have an ugly storm. Power goes out, wind gets really bad, power goes out as it always does every time the wind blows, 5 miles per hour around here. It's kind of a pain in the ass. And it was out for the better part of like 4 or 5 hours, so I couldn't go forward. So now I'm trying to finish everything. So I just woke up a little while ago. I'm going to go ahead and finish out the marathon to be done with this whole thing. But, Resident Evil Retribution, but what really bugs me is that this movie had some promise. There were some ideas that were being thrown around that could have really been awesome. They bring back a whole bunch of different characters from previous films. One from the original, Rain from the original, fucking Carlos came back, but they never really truly explain what the fuck they're doing here or how they're here in the first place. It makes me wonder, like, okay, so those characters in the previous films, I'm assuming those are the originals and these are all clones, but they don't explain. So it kind of leaves it open to your own interpretation, which I would have preferred getting an explanation. That's just my thing. And we get 2 versions of Rain. I thought that was interesting. You get good Rain, who's actually genuinely nice, and then you get demented Psycho Rain, who decides to inject herself with the Las Plagas plague. That's in this movie, by the way, very briefly. So, okay. And honestly, this could have been one of my favorites of the bunch if there had just been some fucking substance. That's the problem. That's the biggest sin of this movie is that there's just no substance. There's a lot of action going on. They bring in Leon Kennedy. They bring in Barry Burton and a handful of other guys. Luther comes back. I still say his miraculous return in the previous film was kind of bullshit, but that's just my opinion. But they bring them back, and they spend the whole entire movie just one battle after another. But there's no story, there's no interesting dialogue going on for the most part, no substance. But I have to at least give honorable mention to Barry. He was one of the few good things about this movie, mostly because of the actor, who, I swear to God, I always forget this guy's name. I think his last name is Duran, but don't quote me on that. This guy's been around for years, like for the past 20 years. He's one of those actors, you'll see him in so many random movies, sometimes a bit part, sometimes a bigger part. Like, he was in The Butterfly Effect. He played the convict that was, he was in the cell with Ashton Kutcher, kind of helped him out briefly. He was in the Walking Tall remake. He was in Abigail a few years ago. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he was in Ready or Not, Here I Come, that just came out a few months ago. I'm pretty sure he had a bit part in that one too. So he's been around. And honestly, I love him as Barry, and I love how Barry goes out. He goes out like a freaking boss. So that's at least one big thumb up about this movie for sure. That's just my biggest problem with the movie. It could have been so much better if you just put some decent story. I'm sorry. I'm not the kind of person that I like an action movie, but I like fun action movies, but I like there to be a decent story, some explanation, just a few different things that could have just made this much more interesting. But as is, in my opinion, the quality for the last, between Afterlife and now this one, it's gotten steadily worse, and it's been harder to get through, but I already know how bad Last Chapter is going to be. I actually do not own the Last Chapter. I've never bothered to buy it. I've only seen it one time, and I didn't like it the first time either. And I made the mistake back then of watching the review of it from, I think, Chris Stuckman, watching his review before I saw the movie. So my expectations were already from the get-go. So note to self, when you're recording, turn off your damn phone. I don't know if I should cut that or not. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw down the final chapter. I'm going to try to give it a fair chance the second time through. I'm going to try very hard, because I remember this movie kind of just threw everything. And I was wrong when I said previously about Retribution kind of retconned everything. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I admit it. This, as I recall, is the one that retconned everything. Just kind of took everything from the previous movies and just went, fuck you. Everything that you've been working towards, everything that you've been watching up till now, nah, we're doing something else different. Get over it. And it's just like, whatever. Pete, give me strength, buddy. I need it for this one. Badly. So I was wrong about you. Blow me. Are we sure people weren't using AI 9 years ago? 10 years ago when the movie was initially made? Because it kind of feels like it sometimes. Not just with this movie, but the previous few. Okay, that is it. We are done. We're done with the Paul W.S. Anderson films. Done, finished, finito. Done. You know what? These last 3 movies were a task to get through. And you know what? This movie, for the most part, is as bad as I remember. And I think my biggest complaint about the movie, and I think this is the thing that everybody has talked about over the years, and like I said, I tried to be fair. I tried to give it a chance, but the editing is the biggest problem with this movie. The editing and the shit storytelling that we get throughout the entire film, especially towards the end, how they keep changing all the different details, and they throw in a twist at the end that's just kind of like, really? Like, I actually forgot what the twist was, and when I heard it, I was like, oh, God. It's like you're literally just doing whatever you want with the story as it goes on, because I think deep down, he didn't know what to do with the story. And as far as the editing is concerned, who the hell test marketed this movie and said that this worked? I don't understand. I mean, the cuts are so quick, and every action sequence is littered with it. It's not like it's just one sequence or maybe just a couple. No. Pretty much all of the action pieces in this movie, and there's quite a few, action sequences are littered with this kind of editing, and I just don't get it. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm any kind of an expert, but I feel like a 10-year-old learning how to do editing using editing software could do a better job than what we got, because it made it virtually unwatchable, I should say. It gave me almost gave me a freaking headache watching this shit. And it's just unforgivable. It's like I don't think I've seen this kind of bad editing during an action sequence since Catwoman. Yes, I've seen it. I screened it at the theater when it came out years ago. The funny thing is, I screened it at the theater when I was working projection. I watched it for free, and I still want my 2 hours back. Take that for what it is. I can't tell you how many times I had to pause this movie to try to get through it. It was hard. It was difficult. There were so many bullshit moments throughout the entire film. I mean, a lot of times I make a joke about, oh, where's my bullshit flag? There's my bullshit flag. It's like, with all the bullshit flags I had to throw out with this movie, I have to restock because I'm completely out at this point. Because there were just so many of them where I was like, no, bullshit. Now, am I going to completely 100% shit on the movie? Not completely. There are at least a couple of little intelligent moments for all the stupidity that gets done throughout the film. There's a couple of moments here and there where I was like, okay, that was actually smart. That was actually cool. That was actually funny. There's one moment where they go through this ginormous fan, and Alice is like, somebody's watching us, and Ruby Rose's character looks up and goes, flips it off, and then, yeah, I'm like, okay, that's funny. It's one of the few funny moments in the entire film, but it's still funny for what it is. And I forgot to turn my phone off again. Oops. Yeah, we're just making all kinds of mistakes. But, aside from a few different moments here and there that I actually kind of enjoyed, there were few and far between. But again, I had to find something about the movie to be positive about. Even the opening, even though it does the same thing as before, where it's Alice recapping the previous films, but they also take it a step further, that apparently there was an outbreak that took place before the initial outbreak that happened with the Hive 10 years prior. So apparently it's been 10 years, by the way. Okay, so we've established that it's been that long. So even though they keep getting the continuity wrong throughout the film, so I say take that with a grain of salt. But then they introduce this idea about a character. His name is escaping me right now, but he is from the game. He is the guy who helped create the T-Virus initially, but in this movie they changed it up to where he had a daughter who had this rare disease where it would age her increasingly fast. Kind of like the character Jack from the movie Jack with Robin Williams. Kind of like that, where by the time she would be like 20, 25 years old, she would look like an 80-year-old woman. Essentially the same idea as that. He creates the virus to try to slow down the process. It initially works, but then of course he gets killed off because there's an incident with the virus getting out, and they cover it up, and he's not happy with it. They kill him, take the virus, and just take Umbrella in a whole different direction. Aside from a few things that were changed from the game, I don't know. I felt like this opening little bit was a nice piece of storytelling, and I think a lot of it for me is that I was just so starved for some storytelling of any kind that I actually kind of enjoyed it. I watched it a couple of times. I actually backed it up and rewatched it, and I'm like, I mean, it's not a bad opening if you're able to take away the idea that they changed ideas from the original game. It's not terrible, in my opinion. And there is one other thing about Dr. Isaacs. Again, not getting into the whole twist ending at the end, which when I do my second review of this movie, there's a lot of things we're going to divulge in. We're going to talk about a lot. But there is an idea of him when he's working for Umbrella that we get to see some footage of some meeting that happened years prior. And apparently he's talking about, because he believes that the world is heading towards a global Armageddon with all these different factors coming into play, the melting of the polar ice caps, to overpopulation and whatnot. The idea he has is to release the virus on purpose so that it wipes out pretty much the majority of population, with the exception of selected few Umbrella employees that are going to be the select few that are going to start the whole new world all over again. He even references the whole ark idea from the Bible, from Genesis. Talked about how effective it was the first time. And I find this to be a little interesting. This is one of the most intriguing parts of the entire movie because it is thought-provoking, a lot of things he's saying about where things are going with the planet, with humans and whatnot, part of me thinks that he's not really wrong about this. And his idea, I mean, I don't agree with releasing the virus. That part I do not agree with. I want to be clear on that. But everything leading up to where he believes that we're pretty much fucked, that stuff I kind of agree with, based on the way things are going lately as well. But his level of thinking, for me, for my money, is almost Thanos level of thinking, because what was Thanos? What was his mentality? That, okay, well, I'm going to take away half the population, and that will fix the problem with overpopulation. Not there not being enough food, enough living space for everybody, and everybody will live in peace and harmony. But he wants to destroy pretty much 100% of the world's population, aside from the select few, a proverbial ark situation, if you will. Again, that's one of the most intriguing things of the movie. But again, for all the little things and that I can get behind, the rest of the movie, in my opinion, it's hard to sit through. It's hard. It's difficult. I'm not even going to be nice here. It's dog shit. There's too much dog shit in this movie. Seriously. I have to be completely honest. I mean, the quality of these films for me just got steadily worse and worse until we got to this point, and it just feels like they don't give a shit anymore by the time they get to this point. I feel like they stopped caring in the afterlife. But that's just me. That's just me. So that's going to do it for this particular marathon. I was initially going to throw in Welcome to Raccoon City so I could watch it a second time, take some notes, and also do a second viewing review on it, because there's a lot of things I want to divulge in with that film. But considering how long it took me to get through this one and the power outage that we had last night, it slowed me down, and I got other things I want to deal with right now. This is taking up a much longer amount of time than it ever needed to. So I'm going to go ahead and exit at this point, and I'll just leave it as the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil Marathon, and I'll leave it at that for this point. I will still watch it and do that review in the very near future. So it's all good. Now, as far as my overview of this series as a whole, this is probably going to go down as one of the least favorite marathons that I've ever tried to do in my life and will ever try to do going forward. The first movie, I didn't have any real problems watching. The second one, I found a few problems. Part 3 does have a share of problems, but it is watchable. And from 4, 5, and 6, it just goes down, down, down from that point. This is not a marathon. I don't think I'll ever do this one again in my lifetime. I really can't see doing it. So, but you know what? At least it was at least fun to go through the experience to some degree, to kind of talk about it a little bit. And I will go through and do individual reviews of all these films. I dare say, depending on how I feel about it, I might even do a ranking of these films. I'm thinking about it. I mean, why go through the trouble of doing all this if I'm not going to do a ranking? Because there's 6 movies to rank. Hell, I would even throw Welcome to Raccoon City into that ranking, just because those are all the Resident Evil films that we've got outside of the animated ones, which one day I will divulge into that as well. So expect that somewhere down the road. One last note of humor I will address with this before I wrap this all up, because I feel like I've been rambling on for far too long about all this. It is actually funny to go back now and go back and rewatch Chris Stuckman's review of this particular film after he saw it over 10 years ago, or roughly 9-10 years ago. It is funnier to watch it now, knowing that he doesn't like to really, shit on movies anymore. The way he likes to do his reviews now versus before. It's actually even more hilarious now to hear a lot of the things that he has to say about the movie, because it's funny. I highly recommend you go check out that review. You're going to laugh. I guarantee it. Especially when he talks about the editing, the whole thing about, you're just a kid. How do you know about that? Shut up, mommy. I'm a director. Funny as hell. Funny. Or even the whole process of, little infant tapping on the buttons. It's all good stuff. It's hilarious. I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. Like I said, I think I've rambled on enough, but I will go ahead and say thank you very much for watching. Once again, if there's anything that you want to share with me, leave it in the comments. Anything you want to share with any of the films. I've always said I never shit on anybody for liking something I don't like. You know what I mean? I'm not going to judge anybody. If you like these films, hey, let me know. Tell me that you like them and tell me why you like them. Don't hold back on that. feel free to like the video if you did enjoy it. Give me a dislike if you didn't. If you don't agree with things I'm saying, go for it. Knock yourself out. Feedback's always welcome. And again, if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, because this was actually a very interesting endeavor, and I have a lot of other marathons in mind, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that I wouldn't mind doing. Hell, I thought about maybe doing a scary movie one here pretty quick, because we got the new one coming out here in a couple weeks. So why the hell not? In closing, I feel like this would have been a fun marathon to watch if Pete was still around, to watch it with him and a few others. It would have been fun just to kind of make fun of all the different things that we didn't care for and talk about the things that we did. So it'll be fun to continue on with this series down the road and keep the spirit alive. And I'll always think about him every time I do a marathon. It's impossible at this point. So to my boy Pete, man, sucks that you're not around anymore, dude. But you know what? I'll do my best to try to honor your memory while doing this going forward. Love you, brother. In closing, everybody, take care of yourselves. Please be safe. But as always, don't forget to have fun. Just not too much fun.